Well, I had the privilege of growing up in Buffalo, New York, small town, and went to work for my dad at 10 years old. He put me to work, and he ran Montando's Seafood Company, which is now 103 years old. So we had a great relationship growing up, except that it was always work. We were working all the time, and as I got older, I was realizing I was yearning for love and acceptance. And it really wasn't until I was age 32 that I really heard my dad say, "I loved you, was proud of you." Well, I went away to school at Jacksonville University, but after 2 years, dropped out because I had a passion for golf. Came to South Florida and really wanted to play. And in that playing, I really wanted acceptance. And I got on a performance track where turned pro, tried to play competitively in the area, and realized at some point I was an average player. And then I became a PGA club professional and got into the business. And at the young age of 27, I was head pro at Frenchman's Creek, which was owned by Jack Nicklaus. So to some extent, I was a legend in my own mind at 27. One night I went out to dinner with a young girl, Julie, and basically kind of looking for love in all the wrong places. And at the end of the dinner, she gave me her business card. And at the bottom of the business card, it said Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. And I kind of chuckled and I said, "What is that?" "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your path." That gripped me because I was not trusting in anything but me. So that night we walked the beach, shared the gospel. Following day, January 2nd, 1983, went to Maranatha Church and received Christ and began my walk and journey with him. The first week of a believer, I was really convicted when I recognized what Christ had done for me in love. I had known a lot about lust. What can I get to satisfy me? So the following week, went back to Maranatha, and Dr. Arnold Prater preached on love. And one of the things he said that gripped me was, "A bell's not a bell till you ring it. A song is not a song till you sing it. The love in your heart was not given to stay, for love was meant to be given away." And at that point, God touched me in a special way. Well, that first step of faith and obedience was ultimately, where do you want me to serve? Left the golf business, and Youth for Christ came to me and said, "Look, we want to start youth guidance, working with first-time offenders." They offered the job. I picked my wife up off the floor. I said, "Honey, we're going to go make $16,000 a year and serve the Lord." That year, she went out and had 2 jobs. We had 1 car. One of my former assistants felt sorry for us, gave us a car. But that began my journey to see God's provision with Youth for Christ. Over those 8 years, the first area I ministered in was the Juvenile Detention Center, which opened my eyes to the plight of our African-American boys. I would go in there weekly and meet with them and do chapel. And I'd start talking about, "How's your dad?" Their eyes would drop, their arms would fold, and I began to realize the fatherlessness that existed in the urban community. That broke my heart because God had healed my relationship with my dad when I realized I needed to forgive him. That healing then brought a burden for the fatherless, which is so many times in Psalms it talks about that God will be a father to the fatherless. And though your mother and father forsake you, the Lord will receive you. That was the beginning of the calling. After 8 years on staff with Youth for Christ, working with first-time offenders, doing jail tours, the reality is the gospel is the greatest message ever. However, my kids couldn't read. They couldn't look me in the eye. So the birthing of Urban Youth Impact was in 1997 with a mission to love, equip, and empower inner-city youth to fulfill their God-given purpose. So the birthing of Urban Youth Impact really started with a weekly sports outreach at Gaines Park. We showed up every single week, played football and basketball. We drew them through that. Then we shared the gospel and then fed them. And the interesting thing about that was that we remained faithful every single week. And so many times in our community, the kids have ups and downs, people move, fathers come and go, but faithfully showing up each week, they began to realize that, wait a minute, maybe my life is worth something. Maybe with the message of the gospel that God has a purpose for my life. As ministry grew, we wanted to get a building. And we had a situation with the city that came up where they were going to help us. And we worked with them for 6 months. And all of a sudden, one day I walked into the city office and they said, "You can't build there because there's a 60-inch water main." It devastated me. I walked out of the office with my architect. And as I was, tears in my eyes, I'm thinking, "Lord, we're doing your will. You brought us this far. Why is this all of a sudden gone down the drain?" And the conviction I had was the Lord saying to me, "Is this about you, Bill?" That conviction of understanding what's in our heart, the motives of our heart, began to be an ongoing process of sanctification. As God calls us, he continues to challenge us. He continues to test us. He knows what's there, but he allows difficult things to come till we come to the end of our rope. We search our heart, as David prayed, search my heart, O God, see if there be any wicked way, and purge and cleanse me. That has continued along the way through my whole journey. And I believe as God calls us, he builds a foundation. He wants to deal with those things, and we need to yield to it, keep our heart right before the Lord, and keep walking by faith. One of the great things about God's faithfulness is my wife, Carrie, who has stood by my side for 25 years, going through a lot of huge challenges. We've grown, we've had difficulties, but her faithfulness to supporting me has been tremendous. In that same journey, we were blessed after waiting 20 years for a child by adopting our daughter, Rachel, in 2004, which has been a great joy to our family. In January, we celebrate 25 years, and in that period of time, the grace of God has allowed us to impact over 10,000 kids' lives through salvation, where their lives are changed, first time in their home, being able to go to college, many of our kids' first time college, and many have gone and started their own business. We have seen kids loved, equipped, and empowered through the gospel, and lives changed for eternity, generations changed, and that impact is for God's glory.